spoken with every one of our NATO allies. There's no reason for anyone, any member of NATO, to worry whether or not we, NATO, would come to their defense.
That was President Biden this afternoon reaffirming support for our NATO allies and European democracies. That's amid escalating Russian aggression along the Ukrainian border. In the midst of this increasingly tense geopolitical crisis, one Fox News anchor is just asking why Biden's being so mean to Vladimir Putin.
Why is it disloyal to side with Russia, but loyal to side with Ukraine? They're both foreign countries that don't care anything about the United States. Kind of strange. The government of some place called Ukraine is demanding that we fight the Russian army on their behalf. The question is, we're the United States, so why are we obeying them? We don't get anything out of pushing Ukraine into NATO, so why are we doing this? Vladimir Putin is our most dangerous enemy, they scream. We can't let him hurt Ukraine. But in Washington, the theme remains in force. Russia, 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 Russia is bad.
And there's a reason they play him every night on Russian state TV. It's not the first time Tucker Carlson has openly embraced dictators. He's been vocal in his support for Hungarian leader Viktor Orban. Last week, he announced that he'll be broadcasting his show from that country again, the second time in less than a year. Most people haven't even seen their parents that much in the pandemic era. We're back with Ashley Parker, David Jolly, and Donnie Deutsch. So, David Jolly, Tucker's not dumb, or I think we could answer those questions for him. But why is he so committed, and why is Fox News, on his behalf, so committed to tearing down American embrace and support and alignment with the world's democracies?
I suppose for Tucker and Fox News, it's about ratings and corporate profit. Look, I'd say it's easy to dismiss the rantings of Tucker Carlson as kind of ignorant lunacy or someone seeking a headline, and both of those are probably very true. But I think the danger in this, Nicole, when you get to matters like Ukraine and Russia, I think from the perspective of the media's responsibility, whether it's opinion journalism or hard news, you know, a lot of programming is built around political news that confirms somebody's viewpoint of the world. And that's great. And that's why some people choose this network. Some people choose others. It aligns with their view of politics. But when you're in matters of the Ukraine and Russia, those are really low information spaces where the message of hosts, the message of those who cover the news really matters and informs. And so for a large audience across the country, when Tucker Carlson delivers this message, it's dangerous, because it's actually informing and educating people that the Western alliance that protects freedom from dictators and authoritarian despots like Vladimir Putin somehow is not valuable, and there's equity between Putin and the Western alliance for freedom. That's the danger, that people actually believe what he is telling them on a nightly basis.
Well, and there shouldn't be any message from a cable anchor. There should be experts and questions. And I wonder, you know, Ashley Parker, President Biden's comments were important for another reason. I mean, famously, Dina Powell and H.R. McMaster had a really hard time getting Donald Trump to say what Biden said right there, that he would affirm the commitment to defend our NATO allies in any crisis if it's on a foreign trip. So the idea that one of the most watched, Tucker Carlson has incredible ratings. Fox News is played on just about every military base. And yesterday, 8,500 U.S. troops were put on high alert. So what is the acknowledgement that he's doing grave harm to American national security, I guess, cohesion, or sort of a purpose of the United States national security doctrine over decades to Democrats and Republicans to stand with democracies against autocracies?
Well, there's a central irony here that's sort of delicious for someone like former President Trump, which, as you alluded to, he was hammered correctly in many ways for 4 years of not being tough enough on Russia, on Putin. This was a message by Democrats. This was a message by President Biden when he was a candidate. And what's interesting in what we're seeing play out now in terms of the actual politics and actual situation of it is that Democrats and Republicans sort of in theory on the policy are incredibly aligned in terms of what they want, what they think the administration should do, how they think it should be handled, what they want to see from Russia. But because of what happened in part under the Trump presidency, those domestic politics are scrambled. So you see some Republicans who are being critical of someone like President Biden, in part because, and these are, to be clear, sort of the more Trumpian MAGA base, because they are just so furious that for 4 years, Democrats and Biden hammered Trump for not being strong enough on Putin, that they want to say that Biden now will not be strong enough on Putin. And then, of course, they're hearing these messages from people who they watch and they listen to, like Tucker Carlson. And so you're seeing partisanship in one of these areas where really, when you talk to Democrat and Republican lawmakers, they say, we should actually all agree what's best for the country and what's best for the world. But that's not totally what we're seeing right now on Capitol Hill.
I mean, some of this was obviously the matched or sort of intersecting missions, if you will, Donnie, in 2016, as outlined in the first volume of the Mueller report, that Russia sought to influence the election in Trump's favor, and the Trump campaign welcomed that support and called out, Russia, if you're listening and whatnot. Washington Post has some analysis of that. It wasn't until the 2016 election, when Putin and Russia sought to influence the outcome on behalf of Trump, who'd similarly excused Putin's assassination efforts, that a partisan gulf emerged. Suddenly, Democrats were far more likely to see Russia as a threat than were Republicans. In fact, Republican concern about Russian influence decreased in the wake of those revelations. Among those who reported having voted for Trump last year, twice as many viewed Putin with at least some favorability. Putin's goal in seeding conflict during the 2016 election was to amplify divisions in American politics. 5 years later, that effort has generated a weird side effect. It seems also to have widened the gap on perceptions of Putin himself. I remember, I don't know if you were there that day, Donnie, but I remember, Trump saying to Joe, we do bad things too, and Joe said, but Putin's a killer. I mean, has Trump's embrace of Putin and Tucker following his lead, or maybe leading him now, I don't know who leads who in the Tucker-Trump relationship, but has that made it harder for any American president now to lead this country in terms of challenging Russia with the feeling that the country's behind them?
Yes, the new poll said that 33% of Americans think democracy, it's okay to tamper with democracy a little bit. And then the autocrats obviously are on the other side of that and obviously come out on the winning side of that formula with that 33%. I want to go back to one argument about Tucker Carlson. Let's get this straight. And there's the point I brought up about Glenn Youngkin in the first segment, that obviously the more polarizing you are, the more interactions you get, the better your ratings are. He's a ratings whore. Okay? That's it. It's a game. Let's stop saying it's performance art. That's what it is. And by the same way, last week he said that making kids wear masks in school is no different than the experiments the Nazis did on the Jews, the medical experiments, and it's the same kind of mandate situation. He's a ratings whore, and that's what it translates into. And that's what this is, period.
With unbelievably dire consequences. We'll leave it there. Ashley Parker, thank you for being part of our coverage. A tragic update to a story